All right, hey, welcome everybody. I'd like to get your attention. I'd like to start this afternoon. Thank you and welcome to our Women in Construction Mentorship Matters event for 2022. I want to say thank you to you all, especially those who drove down from Traverse City today, and maybe some other parts of the great state of Michigan. It's great to see everybody. We're so happy to be in person once again after being fully virtual last year. So in person is better. Sorry, Homer's telling me to go over here. Sorry, Homer. Few people that I want to thank before we begin. First of all, our panelists, Rhea Estrada from EV Construction, Amy Russell from Comstock Construction up in Traverse City, and Aileen Lightbrand from Gilbert Heaven. And special thanks to Jenny Wah for being our moderator today. I'd also like to thank our Women in Construction Committee. There's a lot of work that goes into this to make this event happen. So thank you to our entire committee and also our Women in Construction sponsors. We couldn't do this without them. We are really appreciative. We have so many organizations and people who want to bring awareness to diversity in construction, specifically today, women in construction, and how we can all make a positive impact for our industry. So again, thank you to all of you, your willingness to share your time, money, and experiences. We still on. The mission statement of our Women in Construction event is to raise awareness of women in the construction industry by acknowledging and highlighting current women in the industry and provide guidance to any newcomers. And that's why we're here today. I'm hopeful that we can maybe make some new connections, maybe connect with someone who could be a mentor or a mentee, and continue to encourage women to choose construction as a career. With that said, now I'd like to introduce today's moderator. Jenny Wah, recently named one of the 50 most influential women in West Michigan, is the, yeah, can we get a round of applause for that? Yes. Jenny is the Marketing Operations Director, a partner at Vispec, one of the top 500 design firms in the nation. She's responsible for brand development and management, along with strategic planning, community relations, and charitable giving. Jenny's passionate about sharing her talents with nonprofits and associations in the community, especially in support of workforce development or housing initiatives. Jenny sits on several boards and committees, along with chairing her township's planning commission. Having been in the industry for 17 years, Jenny knows just how important it is to support women through events like this. Jenny has opened doors for many women interested in joining the construction industry, and continues to mentor where possible, as well as provide resources to help women kickstart their career. She loves supporting talented women in the industry because of the creativity they can bring to design and construction. Please join in welcoming Jenny. Jenny?
We're already melting up here and I'm embarrassed. So my daughter calls it the 50 over 50. So it always makes me blush just a little bit. I want to say a huge thank you, first of all, to Windemuller. I would have loved an event like this 20 years ago. So thank you for your continued commitment to the women in the industry. And thank you for welcoming. So we're going to get started tonight. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from our panelists. So first, to my left is Amy Russell. Amy is a project manager for Comstock Construction. She began as an intern in 1993 and gives credit to a female executive for helping her learn the ropes and build a career at Comstock, which is one of Northern Michigan's construction leaders. Amy, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry?
I went to Ferris State University for architecture, and after 2 years of that, not seeing my friends at all and just drawing away, I decided that I did not want to be an architect, so I transferred to construction management and got my bachelor's there. And then actually when I graduated, I worked for an architect for a year or so until I came back home to Traverse City and went back to my internship job at Comstock. And I've been there for 26 years.
Rhea is on the general trades team at EV Construction. EV's commitment to people and world-class safety has kept it ranked as a top place to work in the nation, year after year. She comes from a construction family and credits her strong family role models for her career path. Rhea, can you tell us a little bit about your position at EV and how you ended up in this role?
So I started off as a guest service supervisor at a hotel, and I was going to school for civil engineering. And I used to live in Texas, and then when I moved up here, I kind of wanted to change the scenery, so I talked to my dad about maybe getting into the construction aspect of everything. And when I went for my interview, they were just kind of seeing the type of person that I was to see where I would fit best. And they told me that I would probably fit better as a painter. So alongside my dad and my brother, I went into painting, and I've been there for about a year and a half now. So yeah.
Sorry, one microphone. It's gonna take a while. Aileen brings more than 30 years of legal counseling and litigation experience to the table in construction law and commercial litigation at Hilder Hammond. Aileen has a unique story in that she was well supported by her male coworkers as she began a specialty in construction law. Aileen, can you tell us a little more about how you started in the industry?
Sure. So my first experience in the industry was a little shaky, probably more from my client's perspective than mine. I was a new attorney at a very large law firm. And in those days, there was this long letterhead that would list, 80 lawyers' names on it. And I show up for a client meeting, was representing a residential builder on a very high-end build on the lake shore of West Michigan. And the west elevation leaked like a sieve. I mean, it was terrible. And so the homeowner was suing the builder, and of course the architect was involved, and the window manufacturer was involved. I show up for the first meeting with the client, this residential builder. I walk into his office was in Holland, and I sit down, and he sizes me up, and I think at that time I was 23 years old. He looks at me, and I sit down, and I've got my pad of paper and my pen like I always do, and we get started, and he says, "Wait a minute." And he pulls out the letterhead from the law firm, and I was so new, I wasn't even on the letterhead. And he's like, "Who are you?" And so I had to explain to him that I was brand new, just licensed like 30 days ago. And so I was pretty sure this guy thought he was toast. He's going down in flames because he got the newbie and he got the girl. Can it get any worse than that? But I worked really hard on his case because it was a big deal for me and it was a new case. And we actually became pretty good friends out of that. And after that great experience, we won the case for him. I used him as an expert witness, and we became such good friends. He referred me a lot of work, and from there it grew into a much larger practice, especially in the commercial and litigation world.
Well, we're here to talk about mentors, so we'll give them a softball question to start. Can you tell me about your mentor and how you ended up with a mentor?
So my mentor works in our office. She's worked there a lot longer than I have. Probably started in 1976. So she has seen a lot more changes than I have. But Jody Bergman from Comstock, she is a Comstock, but she's a family. So she's been around the business her entire life. And so when I came to work there, she was great help to me because I was surrounded with men except for her. So whenever I had an issue or, you know, I wanted to bounce something off of her, I used her a lot and she's very smart. So I was lucky that I had such a great lady.
My mentor, her name is Rachel. She's actually right over there for EV construction. She's there for my interview and she's been there with me. A lot of the way she talks to me a lot and I definitely look up to her. She's definitely a very powerful person and maybe I'll be here one day.
Most of my mentors have been men because, at least when I started practicing law, there were no female partners. We had, you know, in a firm of 85, we had one woman partner, and her name was Dale. And I was horrified in my first interview when I asked the question, why don't you have any, you know, women partners? And then they said, oh, we do have one. Her name is Dale. And so I felt foolish for assuming that Dale was a woman. But in any event, most of my mentors were men. Until probably 15 years in the practice of law, I got together with a group of women and we just formed what we call a goal community. And then it was more like an accountability community, and it was really helpful that there were 5 of us. And we met regularly and we worked on stuff. We had goals and we had objectives and we held each other accountable. And they were not in the construction industry, which is very helpful to me to just bounce ideas off of other successful women.
Amy, do you think people need a formal mentor?
No, I don't think you need a formal mentor. I mean, most women that go into construction are usually strong personalities because, at least when I went to school, it takes a lot of, I guess, strong personality to get through to even be where we are.
Do you want to talk about school?
So when I went to school and I switched from architecture to construction management, my first day of school, I had a professor who told me that I did not belong in his classroom. I must be lost. The art room was down the other direction. When I still stayed in his class, he still got after me and said, ma'am, did you not hear what I said? And I'm like, yes, sir, I'm supposed to be in this class. I have signed up for construction. But he was very hard on me the entire time at school. He actually tried to fail me as hard as he could because he did not think that I should be there. But actually now, looking back, it was a great benefit for me because when I actually graduated, I was going to be encountering these type of men everywhere I go. So I was used to it, it didn't bother me, so it was actually a good thing for my experience.
Amy, what about you? You have the double whammy of working in construction and the legal profession, which are both male dominated. Have you had to adjust at all in those circumstances?
Well, initially a similar experience. When I walk into a room for a deposition, the receptionist would greet me and she'd say, oh, I'm so glad you're here. You can set up your equipment in the other room, because she thought I was the court reporter, because all of the court reporters were women. And I say, oh, no, I'm the attorney. And then, you know, the look of shock and surprise. And then usually an apology, oh, I'm so sorry for making that assumption. Or again, when I started at a big law firm and one of the senior partners asked me if I could get him a cup of coffee, and I'm like, well, get your own coffee. He thought I was one of the support staff. But I do think mentors are important. I think another word I would use maybe is social capital. In my experience, my male colleagues have done a great job of building their social capital and their social network by golfing, by fishing, by attending sporting events together. And some women maybe don't necessarily build the same social capital in the same way, because our jobs, they're only, you know, a quarter done when we get home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night because we've got family. So there's not a lot of extra time to devote to building social capital, which I think is a little different from mentoring. But I have found that developing a mentor relationship, that relationship is a safe zone where you can talk about anything, especially if you're building trust, where you know your mentor is looking out for you and they're going to be your advocate. But it's also the safe place to talk about really tough decisions like, am I supported by my organization? Should I leave my organization? What can I do to advance at my organization? And trust that somebody's looking out for you and trying to help with those difficult decisions.
What advice would you have for someone starting out in the industry?
My advice for a female starting out in the industry, just be yourself. Be able to work hard. Realistically speaking, technically men are stronger and faster. But at one point in their life, they started out the same place that you did. They were at the bottom of the food chain and they worked their way up. And with time and practice, you could potentially be, if not where they are, ahead of them because with strength and with speed, it's just time, basically. So don't be discouraged because you're in a room full of men, because it shouldn't stop you from doing what you actually want to do.
Amy, what's kept you in the construction industry so long?
I actually loved my job, so I really haven't thought about leaving until up to this pandemic mess. So everything has turned crazy, but I love going to work, so that's why I stay.
Culture that comes out.
Oh, the culture where I work is really good because it's a family business. So, and I'm the only one there that's not family. So they've kind of just taken me in over 26 years. So I feel like they are my brothers and sisters. They all have a lot of knowledge. So I get a lot of support there. So I like where I work and I like my job.
Let's talk about associations and organizations, things like this that you can participate in to build a network and strengthen your career. What ones have you found helpful? Are there any that you recommend to other people? What have been your experiences?
I started in college in women in construction. We had a really strong lady that was in architecture who got us going, and that was a lot of fun. I met a lot of ladies. And then after that, when I graduated, the AGC had a program for young constructors. So I met a bunch of people just like me all over the state, and quite a few women actually. And the men and the women, they were all great support because we were all young and just starting out. So I enjoyed that.
I would echo that. I think West Michigan is rich with trade associations that gather frequently and provide opportunities to meet people. And that's been just a good way to get connected. We still have a lot of work to do when I think about what those meetings might look like and how we can shift the paradigm and maybe create different kind of opportunities for people to connect. But we do have a really, really robust community between the Subcontractors Association and AGC and ABC and Inforum, a women's networking group, and the Home and Building Association and the Construction Specification. I mean, there's so many opportunities to just take advantage of and get to know people. So maybe that's part of the DNA of West Michigan.
In associations or trade organizations.
They have that in Traverse City, the Builders Exchange.
Back to you.
The Traverse City Builders Exchange, I'm not sure about the Grand Rapids. But, that, they have a lot of different things. They have a lot of networking nights, and different classes that they provide. So it's a great place to get involved if you want to meet people, get mentors.
I know I joined in Forum years ago, and that was one of the, probably the most career-changing associations for me, just because of who I met. You had a similar experience with NAWIC, didn't you?
So NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction, when I became associated with them, I want to say maybe about 30 years ago. Again, I was really green, I was really new. I wanted a safe zone to meet some women in construction. When I first went to that group, there were a lot of women who were older than me, and that was very helpful. But one of the things that was most helpful is the mechanical industry back then had a lot of family relationships, and there were disputes between companies. And it was very helpful for me to call my NAWIC friend and have her diagnose or give me a family tree of certain families, so I knew who to call, what to say, what not to say. So NAWIC became the place where I learned who were the good contractors, who were the bad contractors, who paid slow, who didn't pay slow. Sometimes I'm hearing about my own clients, but I learned a lot of just, you know, the general industry scuttlebutt, which is not a good thing or bad thing. It wasn't a place to trash people. It was just, we were all talking about our jobs and our experiences. And those gals were very, very helpful in just outlining from their perspective what their jobs looked like and the people they were working with.
Right, I'll talk a little bit about what it's like to be a construction family.
For me, at EB, I was actually really blessed because it's an amazing industry, and being around so many people, so many gatherings that we do, like safety meetings, and EB's really big on families and stuff like that. There will be times where we like have picnics for having X amount of time without any injuries, and like celebrating people's birthdays, weddings, anniversaries. It's super awesome. It's super great to be a part of something like that. It definitely makes me not want to ever leave, that's for sure, but they're definitely the best company I've ever worked for, and I really like that. It's definitely a big thing.
So there's always opportunities for professional development, both within your career path and outside. Are there any particular classes or continuing ed classes that you would suggest? Like the business of networking that we had last week, or negotiation, or is there anything that's really helped you or that you would encourage others to look into?
I guess I'll just stress again, like, you know, the trade organizations like AGC, they have all kinds of events, golf outings, and they're always having an event where you can meet other people. And same with the Builders Exchange. Continuing ed, there's like, I don't know, American Institute of Construction, the AIA, all of those groups really are always promoting, you know, continued ed.
I echo the same thing. I took a course on blueprint reading. I probably could take it 5 times because there was a lot to understand on blueprints that was helpful. I think for women especially, getting connected with leadership development training is really helpful, especially if you're with an organization like Inforum that really focuses on building women leadership skills. So you're in a safe environment. If you have to stand in front of a podium for your first time to do or say something, it's a very supportive environment to do that. And it's very skill building around leadership, so you can stand comfortably in your own shoes.
Is there any classes that you would like to take in the future, Maria?
Classes I would like to take in the future would be carpentry classes. EB provides those. on nights, twice a week. I really want to branch out and learn different things. I think carpentry would be kind of forward.
Amy, do you think there's a certain timeline for when people are steps you need to take to further your career if you're a woman in the industry?
I just think it works itself out. If you're good at what you do, you progress up the chain there. I guess being a woman, you have to prove yourself a lot because a lot of men, such as I had a superintendent on my job one time who basically told me he wouldn't take any orders from me. He only took orders from my Comstock. And I had to tell him, where do you think I got my orders from? I work here too, like we're a team. And then after the job was all done, he told me that he really respected me and that I did a good job, and he was not, thinking that I was gonna be, I guess, a good leader, I guess.
Give a timeline, schedule, do you think there's certain things people need to do at a certain age or certain?
I think your professional growth can be organic, it just happens through the experiences that you gain, but I think it should be more intentional than that, making it happen instead of letting it happen and really kind of trying to map that out on a 1-year, 3-year basis. I hope your organizations are challenging you to do that so you can measure your growth. And I think I heard a comment that, being prepared and working hard is really important. I found if I had to go to a client meeting, again, I'm meeting with a predominantly mostly men in construction, and maybe we just have this horrible crane electrocution that happened this morning, and we're all scrambling to deal with the terrible consequences about that. I might go online and try to figure out what does the crane look like, Google Earth, where was this happening, so that when I walk in the meeting, I'm not so terribly cold and have to ask dumb questions. So trying to be prepared because credibility matters. But then also trying to be authentic enough to be vulnerable. Like, hey, what are you talking about when you mean the coping? What is that? Show me on the picture so that I understand and can do a better job. So being open enough to ask questions if necessary.
Aileen and I had a good conversation because I've always said, fake it till you make it, right? The very first time I got called to a construction site in sandals and a skirt, and I was a walking OSHA violation, to talk to a reporter about the woman who had chained herself to a tree and had called all the media, so all the news, and I had to go on camera, walking OSHA violations, now on camera. I'm not nervous. Take it till you make it. Take it till you make it. The reporter's more nervous than I am. So I was telling Amy this, like, fake it till you make it. She's like, well, you can't do that as a lawyer. So if you had one piece of advice for anyone, a woman in the industry, maybe somebody starting out, what one piece of advice would you give someone?
I guess, being in construction, not to take everything personally that they say, because, like I said, you prove yourself, and your true self will come out, so I guess they'll know who you are, and then they'll change their opinion.
Work hard, and don't be afraid of hard work, and don't have a chip on your shoulder for the hard work. If you have to prove yourself, and maybe it's a little bit harder in the beginning, it all comes back. It really does. So think of it as an investment in yourself, and invest in yourself because it's going to pay off.
My advice would be, respect is definitely earned. You want to be treated like an equal. You need to work as hard as you possibly can to make it possible for that. Men respect women who are actually trying.
We've talked about ways to adapt as a woman in the industry. I've often told the story that I've spent many years pretending that I don't know how to make coffee and I don't know how to take meeting minutes. Because inevitably you walk into a room and you're the only female and somebody will turn to you like, can you grab coffee? No, I don't know how to make coffee. Oh, Jen, can you take the minutes? Can you take some notes? My handwriting is terrible. I really can't. So is there any way that you've had to adapt and cope? Amy? Oh, yeah. We had a discussion about this and I said, well, as a younger person, I started reading the sports page because I knew on Monday we were going to talk about how did Tiger do the Masters. And the good news is I like sports. So it wasn't a heavy lift to read the sports page and just know like who's the #1 draft pick and what does Detroit want to do with the #1 draft pick. It's amazing to me how you can actually be present in a conversation if you just say Tiger Woods on the 17th hole. Oh yeah, everybody talks about that. So reading the sports page was a way to be present. But as I was thinking about that story, I wondered, is that really helpful to everybody? Should we try to have a conversation to fit in a man's world? Or to fit at the cup around the water cooler, whether it's a man's world or an African-American world or whatever the world is? Or should we try to be inclusive in the conversation and just shift the paradigm? And I have a good example from yesterday. I had a meeting in Detroit and carpooled with 3 other guys in the car. And on the way back, it was a long day. It was 8 o'clock at night. We're all pretty tired. We're in the car. And the conversation turned to cars. Okay, I know a little bit about sports. I don't know anything about cars. So there was the Hemi this, the 350 that, and did you see this? And then they did that to the tailpipe. And I mean, I could not keep up. And so I did what I should have done, which is try to catch up on email, but I wasn't part of the conversation. And I thought about that comment. Well, I'm not going to go buy Car and Truck or whatever magazine to try to keep up with the conversation about trucks. It's just not me. And so I was thinking if I could help a younger person in that situation, I would probably say, learn the art of conversation. And maybe I could have shifted the conversation a little bit in a way that I could be included, like, oh, that's cool. Hey, what was your first car? Because everybody has a story about a first car, and now I can be included in that conversation. Or, you know, if they're talking about fishing, hey, where's your favorite fishing hole? Oh, that's a beautiful community. So I'm not talking about hijacking the conversation. I'm just talking about subtle questions that help you become included in it. Because once that subtle shift happens, I think others around become aware, like, wow, we were just talking between us without including that person. So I would think about the art of conversation.
Well, luckily for me, I like to fish, so I didn't have to change my ways, but I'm not into golf, so I did have to kind of catch up on golf. But I lost my train of thought what I was going to talk about. One thing that I found helpful on a job is being the boss. Sometimes people are intimidated by you, so a lot of times, like, we have jobs that are working overtime on weekends. I go there and just help out cleaning up the job site, whatever, make conversation with, get to know everybody on my job site, because really it's the whole team that makes the job go well, not just, you know, the leaders. So you have to include everyone because they're really doing the hard work.
Brandon, what about you? Is there any way that you adjust, or how do you make conversation with your coworkers?
I've never really had a problem with that. I realistically get along with men more than I get along with women, mainly because I grew up in a house with just my dad and my brother, so I was the only girl, so I kind of had to watch sports and golf and hear about their painting experiences and stuff like that. So adapting to that environment was a little bit more easier just because everybody been through that. And they keep me updated on everything. Plus, I really like watching sports, and golf isn't too bad, so.
Aileen, you were talking about the, being intentional when you have conversations about discussing family, or finding that common thread with people when you're talking about maybe kids or being a parent, being very intentional. Can you elaborate on that for us?
So it is important to me to understand the person that I'm talking with, and that includes, you know, what's their day like, and, you know, what's their family, who are their kids. But that's not always a comfortable conversation starter with men. I mean, that's not usually where we start with, but and sometimes it's not a good place to start with, because am I creating an impression that I'm only a mom, I'm not a professional? I'm more concerned about what's, you know, racing off to my kid's sporting event or baking brownies for the Halloween party. So I've had to really think through what those conversations look like, so that I continue to hold the respect of the clients that I work with, but balance that about, really, I do care about their family and their kids, and I want to know what drives them, and that should diminish me as a professional if we're talking about more casual things like that.
Amy, are you mentoring anybody right now?
Not that I know of. I used to do a lot more than I do now, because before COVID, obviously, but a lot of like the Santa groups and the women's groups would have me come to like the high schools, even the kindergartens started. So just, I guess, being in your community, being a face in your community, you're kind of a mentor.
Can you tell us what you did?
Oh, we would just, I don't know, go to school, bring our hard hats, because all the kids love to wear hard hats. And sometimes we bring like building blocks and have kids build things, and just ask questions. Sometimes they can come to a job site and we have heavy equipment that really, they're mesmerized by heavy equipment. We actually worked for a church this year that has a daycare, and so all day long, the kids are like glued to the window, just looking out at the bulldozers and the cranes.
That's fantastic. Aileen, what about you? What do you think the role of a mentor would be?
I think the most important thing you can do is provide encouragement and a really safe space, because we all make tough professional decisions, and it's really hard to talk about those sometimes with your colleagues. And so I've been in mentor relationships that are outside my firm or outside my industry, and I've really felt like those have been two-way streets, very life-giving on both sides of the table there. So.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is whether or not you think somebody needs to be in the industry or outside the industry.
I think they could be anybody, just a support person, just someone to talk to, or, you know, tell somebody something in confidence that, you know, it's going to be spread around. In the industry, they may have a better understanding of what you're going through, it'd be the only, you know, advantage of that.
I would say the same thing, but I do think it's helpful to talk with women who have a shared experience in working with mostly men, just to address any issues with dynamics in relationships and success. And women in the C-suite, you know, that executive suite, we still have a long way to go. So I think, you know, the more that we can encourage women and we see women being elevated to positions of leadership, the more young women, Rhea, have see, that's me. That's, you know, I can do that. So relationships in and out of the construction industry, I think, are really important.
Before we open it to any questions from the audience, do you have any other pieces of advice? Parting thoughts? Something I didn't ask?
I guess the only thing that, has obviously come up working men and women is sometimes when you're friendly to people, they take you the wrong way, and then next thing you know, they're asking you out on a date. So that's just the only, I guess, hard thing to deal with still, I think.
Try to have a positive attitude in whatever you do. That positivity will pull you through a period if you feel like you're isolated or not. But just the power of positivity is immense.
I guess my advice would be believe in yourself. You got this.
Thank you, ladies. Now, do we have any questions from the audience?
So the first question is, do you think that mentorship should be more organic or more in a structured environment?
Well, I was trying to say, because I was lucky enough that it just happened in our organization, but had I not had her, I'm not sure what I would do. So I would say it'd be nice to have a structure in where you work that has someone that you can talk to.
Exactly. If it grows organically, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, then you have to make it happen. And you have to be intentional about it, whether you're seeking a mentor or if you are the mentor, holding your mentee accountable.
Do your companies have formal mentorship programs?
That's where you go wrong.
Our company actually does in a sort of way because we're union, so people start out as apprentices, so they have to go to school while they're working. So I'm sure they meet people there that they're mentors for the men and women. I haven't seen a lot of women actually in the construction trades part of it. There's a few electrical trades I've seen on my jobs, but I don't think I've had any women carpenters on my job yet.
So we've all talked about how sometimes being a woman in construction can feel like a setback, make your life harder. What are some feminine qualities that you feel like that actually propelled you above your male counterparts in areas that are uniquely feminine?
How long do we have?
Let's make a list. Anybody have a whiteboard?
Definitely organization skills, I find, multitasking. Sometimes I have a hard time communicating with some of the guys because the way they do things is different than what I do, and I don't know, have to be the other way, but sometimes you just have to end up being the note taker and all of that because no one else will do it.
I don't know that this is uniquely feminine, but having a collaborative leadership style, I think women are not so much warriors as much as, at least my experience with men are, and without that warrior mentality, there's just greater collaboration sometimes, and just shared opportunities to resolve disputes.
I would say attention to detail, cleanliness, and being focused. I get distracted a lot.
Talking about golf.
Any other questions?
Good one from the Zoom audience.
This is from the Zoom audience. Where is the best place to start fresh out of college into the industry with no in-field experience? And I guess this could be true for high school as well.
I guess for a career.
Well, for me, it was important to make those connections while you were in college. Most colleges will have internships, and they also, Paris had a lot of summer programs that they did with the AGC where you got to meet executives from all the construction companies, so you could pretty much already you know, kind of know where you were gonna lead to when you graduated?
Definitely the trade associations. If you're a recent college grad and you contact the trade association, they will get you plugged in. And then we have the West Michigan Construction Industry Institute, which is all about building workforce development. And so they can't wait to find new talent to plug into the industry.
I think Rhea is a living example of the fact that you find the right company and they are willing to give you a chance. So I think that's the one thing the pandemic has changed, and the labor shortage in our industry. We see more companies that have revised job descriptions to be more about attitude, the positive attitude, and the willingness to work hard rather than a degree, rather than years of experience. And with the right person, they're willing to give them a shot and train and teach on the job. So I think it's easier than ever to start in the industry. Any last questions? Let's see. Do you have any advice for organizations wanting to develop a mentorship program or support mentoring environment?
Just because I took it first.
So West Michigan's Association for Corporate Growth did an experiment like 3 or 4 years ago where they had a specific mentorship program, and it had specific curriculum. And so I think, you know, isn't plagiarism the best form of flattery? If you can find somebody else who has written the curriculum and you're starting from scratch, I think that's really helpful. And what I recall about their curriculum is it was maybe 6 to 8 weeks, and mentors and mentees had to meet once a month, and they had to answer 3 questions or come up with a program or whatever. But the mentor didn't have to work really hard to figure it all out because the program was there, and the mentor and mentee worked through the program materials. So again, those materials were prepared by the Association for Corporate Growth, and they must have got it from somewhere as well. So maybe the internet has some great ideas on that.
It probably helps if your organization, the heads of, like, you know, Windemuller is supporting this program, if they support employees, you know, putting on these sort of programs.
So my company has a mentorship program that is very regimented, but it's more of a mentorship for the company, not necessarily for your own career path. So they will pair a seasoned professional with an emerging professional, but it could be cross-discipline, and sometimes there's a disconnect there. So we've had conversations with leadership on how do we make this more meaningful to staff, to maybe stay within discipline so that you can talk about actual career path and what you need for that discipline. Any other questions? Anyone else have an amazing mentorship program at their company that they would like to answer this question? Steve, perhaps?
Did we have anybody else? No. Me? You want me to answer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, come on up.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm with Cunningham. We do something similar. We have a mentor-mentee program where if you've been with the company for less than 5-ish years, you're paired with someone who's been there, I guess longer than that. Usually between 10 and 20 years, you're paired with somebody. A lot of the times it's someone who can help you kind of within your discipline. Sometimes there is a little bit of a disconnect, but there's always a reason for it. Whether it's a female-female connection, or like my mentor, I'm a project engineer. My mentor is a PM. And actually we work on a job together, so it kind of happened organically for us, the actual mentorship between the two of us. But we also have a program where younger professionals get to work with people who've been there for a little bit longer. We meet once a month. And I think every couple of years, they kind of reassess, who you're partnered with. When new people come in, you're assigned to somebody. If you had an issue with being assigned to somebody or you thought someone else might be better for you, you know, that's open and can be switched up. And we've been doing it for, I think, about 5 years. So.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Anybody else? All right, can we get a round of applause for? We have a gift here from Czech Republic that I'd like to get each of you off the melting hot stage up here. So come on up. Thank you again. For those joining us digitally by Zoom online, this is where we're going to cut the program off.